welcome to the Phantom Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Z. Martin, and tonight we are talking about Lucifer. And we've got a great lineup of panelists to talk about our favorite ruler of hell. But before we dive into it, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Carole.
Hi, Carole Stokes. I'm here on Continual and in Gail's Supernatural group online. I'm on Twitter as true_firesign10. I'm a fanfic writer, and all of my fic is on AO3 under firesign10.
Awesome. Hildy?
Hi, I'm Hildy Silverman. I am a fiction author. I am a member of the Crazy 8 Authors Collective and former publisher of Space and Time magazine. Also a huge fan of Lucifer. Just open mouth cried through the last season, which we won't be talking about, but yeah, it was good, and I'm looking forward to what we discussed tonight.
Great. Bishop?
I'm Bishop O Connell. This is Guinness, for anybody who wants to see him. I write urban fantasy. My American Fairy Tale series is out now. It is sort of a modern spin on traditional folklore and fairy tales, modern setting, and I have a historical fantasy called The Two-Gun Witch coming out hopefully here before too awful long. And you can find me just about anywhere as Bishop M. O'Connell. That's the only way to differentiate myself from the various high schools around the country.
And Susan.
And I am Susan Griffith. I am the one half of the writing team of Clay and Susan Griffith. We've written the Vampire Empire series for Pyre, the Crowning Key series for Del Rey. We're working on a magic series in old 1940s New York City club life. We're working on a weird Western right now, and Clay is creating something new in his room that he won't tell me about. So there's something coming down the pipeline. Who knows what's coming? But I'm really excited here to talk about Lucifer, and great to be here. Thanks.
I'm Gail Z. Martin, and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic fantasy, urban fantasy, and more. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. And I really enjoy the Lucifer series, so I'm excited to get a chance to talk about it. So, before we get into seasons and story arcs and characters and all this, other than Tom Ellis and his washboard abs, what did you love most about Lucifer? And Hildy?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I loved the quirkiness of the various characters. I loved their interactions, the found family aspect of it. Really the characters were the thing for me. Just, I thought all of them were very well drawn, well-rounded, had their faults, had their good sides, and the interactions between them were always entertaining.
Okay. Bishop?
Yeah, the characters were definitely too. I don't know if anybody here on the panel ever read the comic series. But I was actually pleased with what they did to keep it tied to it, but we're still able to make a TV show out of it. I really liked the character growth aspects of it. I mean, obviously the whole point was for Lucifer to grow as a character, but seeing Mazikeen grow, Amenadiel, the detective, the kids, even, it was, and I mean, one of my favorite characters has got to be the Doctor. I mean, she was so fantastic from the beginning, and even she manages to have some serious growth as a character through it. I think it's just a well-written character story. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Susan?
I will say that I did come on for Tom, but the bottom line is the rest of the characters really kind of struck me. I wasn't expecting to like a lot of the supporting characters, and I wound up actually focusing on them much more, and really loving their quirks and the fact that they're all, you think Lucifer is the epitome of good and bad, and that he's got all the flaws, and it turns out that we all have flaws, and every single character had gone through, had found or discovered a flaw, or went through a flaw, renewal, and it really was an amazing journey to go on with all these extra characters that I had no idea I was going to fall in love with, from Mazikil to Linda to even the angels, all the various angels that came in, or the demons. And it was really a fun ride to sort of look at those bigger themes through eyes of everyone else aside from just the devil, which of course he is entertaining, but it was just really kind of interesting to see that the theme of that we're all on that same path was really astounding and well developed.
Carole?
It's a magnificent ensemble cast. I mean, Tom Ellis is a jewel, but he's, you know, he's in a setting of other gems where they're all, the characters are all, someone already said, very well fleshed out. And the way they interact is so seamless. And it's not even just that they interact with Lucifer, they're all interacting with each other. So we don't even have to have Lucifer in scenes, because maybe Detective Douche is dealing with Mazikeen, and the doctor is hanging out with Ella. And there's all these relationships. It's a real web of relationships. Not just here's Lucifer in the center and everyone connects to him, but the way they all connect with each other, which is just wonderful to watch. And then of course the writing is fantastic. I mean, I come from Buffy, so having the quippy, the witty, the banter, the humor, and you have all that emotional stuff going on as well, but counterbalanced with the lighter aspects, which makes the deeper ones even deeper and lets us deal with them without crashing and burning, because it's all so angsty. And I also really liked the balance of human and otherworldly, you know, we have human and angel, human and demon, demon and angel. And having so many core humans in there lets us be able to relate to all of these. You know, we have the doctor to help us give insights into Amenadiel, and we have the detective who's giving us insights into Lucifer, and we have Mazikeen gives us insights into several people. I mean, there's just, once again, that web of relationships juxtaposed with all these different perspectives, and you just end up with this wonderful mass of enjoyment.
Yeah, and they weren't all romance relationships,
No,
which I found so refreshing, that it was about friendships, it was about, you know, romances, it was about, you know, every relationship across the spectrum, from LGBT to whatever, and it was so refreshing to see that come into play.
Peer relationships, sibling relationships, you know, all
even
kinds.
Parental, you know, like when Mazikeen and Trixie became friends, you know, went down that whole path.
Really, really nice.
I've got to admit, I started watching because I wanted to see how they were going to do this differently from Supernatural, and could they do something that was different enough, and they did. Even though there are a whole lot of people who were on Supernatural who show up in the show, which was fun. But I really wanted to see how they were going to come at this whole thing and do it fresh. And I think for the most part, they did that. So either season-wise or story arc-wise, what's the one that you like the best? Bishop?
Gosh, that's hard to pin it down. I don't know if I could tell you where the season breaks were now, thinking back on it, but I think I really liked when Lucifer was trying to get his wings back. I think that was really good in terms of growth for him, you know, coming to terms with himself. And I've always liked the idea of the Lucifer, the devil character, as sort of the misunderstood hero, that, you know, he's not the epitome of evil. He just had, you know, the gall to say no or question God, basically. And it was, I think that was the storyline where it really started to humanize him. That, you know, the things he turned away from, you know, when he turned away from his wings, and then all of a sudden, you know, when they came up for sale, and, you know, he wanted to try and get them back, and it really made it a connection of that whole thing. Be careful, you don't really know how much something meant to you till it's gone. And I think that's really where the relationship between him and Chloe really started to deepen too, because that's where he started to, he was always a narcissist, in the most lovable way possible. But I think that's really where he started to see more past himself and the rest of the world and his interactions with it. It was, and the way, I'm drawing a blank on the actor's name, the one who plays Lucifer. He just, thank you. No, he does a magnificent job with the range. That's a role that could be so easy to just ham up. And when he does, it is just top quality, high grade ham. But he has such a broad range and spectrum with the character. And I think that season's really where he was able to shine and step out of the hedonist, partier, screw the world type of guy, and really could see what his character had.
Mm-hmm. Susan?
Yeah, it's gonna be a hard choice, because I probably would have chosen that one as well, just because it was such a great storyline. But I also love the storyline in season 2, I think it was, with Charlotte coming in. It opened up a whole new bag of emotional trauma and romance and parental discussion of aspects that I didn't expect it to go. And it was really fascinating to see that relationship between him and his mother come into play into such a way that I was constantly surprised. They didn't go in the directions I expected them to go. And so every time the characters or the plot made a twist, it was completely just surprising to me. And I was enjoying the roller coaster ride on that, because it threw me into a lot of different emotions that I wasn't expecting to experience with this character and her relationship with everybody else that was in there, not just with Lucifer, but say with Dan and Maisel and Maze. And there was just so much it left me open to realize, like, this show is going to take me to places that I wasn't expecting. And that really made an impression on me to really want to sit in with the rest of the seasons, to find out just what else the writers had in play, that were, in which characters were going to evolve and stuff from those particular aspects.
It was also kind of brave from a theological standpoint too. Doing a show about Lucifer is one thing, but basically bringing in an equal to God that's a woman, that was
exactly
that was quite a move to make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which Supernatural also did, but in a very different way.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Carole?
Well, I agree with Susan. I think having the whole storyline with Charlotte she was like the ball in a pinball machine, where she's bouncing off all the bumpers, and all these other characters are the bumpers that she's bouncing off of and creating reactions, with and from. And it also was, I think, really useful as a growth, how to show growth for Lucifer, because he's watching her as a celestial who's oblivious to how humans do things and everything. And he doesn't even know that much, but he knows more than her. And to watch her blundering around, I think, really educated him a lot. It was a tool for him to really grow with. I also really liked, once again, with the side characters and the way they developed relationships themselves, how those relationships let them grow. I'm thinking about when Chloe is looking to marry Tom Welling, and there's a lot of Ella is like dying to plan the wedding, and then they're all out, and there's like a couple times, and the girls all go out, the doctor and everybody, they're all going out for drinks and having adventures, and having all that kind of stuff was so rich. It's the kind of thing you see so rarely in any show, much less that you would expect maybe in a genre show. But it was wonderful and funny, and they just mixed it up beautifully whenever they did any kind of, you know, the boys all went out, the girls all went out, you know, the police all went out, the devils and angels. I mean, they all just kind of had all these different little subgroups all the time, breaking and reforming, and they're delightful. You know, it's like the bubbles rising up to boil in your tea, and that's what gives it all that nice effervescence.
Cool. Hildy?
So I don't think I'm supposed to talk about my favorite season because it's the one where Dad shows up. So that was my favorite. Everyone else dealt with all the other ones. So. Sorry.
For me, I really liked seasons 1 and 2 for a couple of reasons. One, that episode where Lucifer hacks off his wings just had me sitting there with my mouth open because it was so not supernatural.
And it's very powerful.
And the idea of leaving behind one identity to claim another, and the independence and the defiance, that was just very powerful to me. One of the other, and I liked the first 2 seasons because they were relatively uncomplicated. We didn't have as many characters, as many arcs, as many interactions. So there was more of a focus on Lucifer and Chloe. And I love the ensemble cast, and I think it brings a richness. And I know there are a lot of reasons to do it from a storytelling standpoint, and just not always having the same actors on set all the time. But from a simplicity and being able to really focus on a couple of characters, I like those early episodes. The other thing is, in the first 2 seasons, we saw a lot more of Lux, the bar. And there were so many poignant moments when here's Lucifer running this amazing bar in LA where all the beautiful people come and do all the things. And he is so alone in the midst of the crowd. It's his party, and he's still completely alone. And then you had those gorgeously lit scenes when he's playing the piano. And I believe that actually is, in most cases, Tom Ellis playing the piano.
Yeah.
In most cases, yeah.
He's that good.
Yeah. And the beauty and the loneliness just really smacked me in those scenes. Mm-hmm. And we see less and less of Lux, and he's off doing more important things, and the bar doesn't play into the storyline nearly as much in later episodes. But that's why I still really like the first 2 seasons, because of that presence. Okay, so final season excluded. What were the story arcs or seasons you didn't care for? Bishop?
I was not a fan, and it actually was sort of the recurring theme for a long while. The whole thing about Chloe being a gift to him. Mm-hmm. That whole thing just felt off to me. And I thought that if they wanted to go down that path, they could have hit back on the self-actualization thing that the angels have, that, you know, when you believe something about yourself, you can make it come true, that they could have given her some kind of self-actualization to rise above what she was meant to be. It just, to me, it just felt a little too creepy from some of the typical tropes, you know. I mean, it's talk about basically making her a trophy, you know. I mean, mm-hmm. she was literally a prize for him. Mm-hmm. And it just, it tainted so many things going forward, you know, that it weakened her as a character because she started questioning herself, and her confidence waned. I would have liked to have, if they didn't do the self-actualization thing, for her to just basically say, yeah, you know what, screw you, that's not who I am. That's not going to be my limitations. I don't care, you know, what everybody says, you know, something that to give her back some of her agency, that she mm-hmm. wants to do that. And that stretched on for basically the whole rest of the show. Even if it wasn't a major point, it was always something in the background that would come back every once in a while. And that was probably the big thing that bothered me, that I didn't like the most.
Okay, Hildy?
For me, it was the procedural aspects of the show, which is, I know a lot of what it hinged on were the mysteries they would solve, but frankly, they were always the weakest part of the show because they were always, you could solve it in the first 2 minutes. In fact, later on the show even makes a joke about it. The first person we met was the killer. What a shock. I felt like the network somewhere along the way said you have to give them, this has to be a police procedural because those sell, so this is how we're going to do it. And that the writers were like, okay, we have to fit this in, and just haphazardly threw in a mystery of the week that they weren't committed to, and there was no real effort behind. Everything else I was about. Everything else was great. Everything else was interesting. I loved learning about the Celestials and that universe building and all of that. But those procedurals, whenever they would go back to that, it would just drag the whole thing down for me.
Okay, fair enough. Carole?
This is heartless, but I didn't like the kid.
Trixie?
Yeah, Trixie.
I didn't care for her. I mean, I think the actress was fine. It's not any slight on her performance. I just felt it was this big distraction. You know, oh, they have the divorced couple, so they have to have a kid because they've got to have some reason to interact and blah, blah, blah. And I just felt like every time she was there, she was a distraction, and I'd rather see the rest of the storylines. And I think the only thing I really liked was the way that Mazikeen kind of developed this softer side. And I did like that. But all in all, you could have gotten rid of Trixie for me.
How about you, Susan?
I have to say that the one that where the series dragged for me a little bit was the introduction of the character of Eve. And while I grew to like her later, in the beginning, she was too much of a distraction for me. She was a plot that I thought they just plucked another Celestial to throw at him in order to, you know, to create a wedge between him and Chloe and stuff. And just, I didn't feel like she didn't come across as powerful enough as the figure of Eve. And this could be because the actress or the way she was portrayed, or it could just be that the way the writers kind of were very slow to bring things up. It was and I will say they eventually have fixed the problem, the character of Eve for me. But in the beginning, when she first came on the scene, she just didn't have the chutzpah to sort of, I felt, really work as a new foil. It's like, yeah, no, that's not his type. And it just didn't seem like she was going to fit in. And so it took me a long time on that particular season to really warm up to the storyline that they were trying to push for her. And you know, like I said, she finally came into her being with, you know, when she and Maze got together and where that storyline went. Then I wound up really loving it, but it took a little while, and I might have to go back and rewatch them now that I know her arc and see if I just wasn't really, you know, what was it specifically that kind of niggled me on that. But
yeah, I had two things, and one of them was Eve, and part of it is you know, I hate seeing depictions of flighty, empty-headed women. They're out there too often. There are too many of them. And I spent the whole time just wanting to smack Eve up the side of the head. And you know, could you please not reinforce every negative stereotype about women ever? So I didn't find her amusing. I found her really irritating. And yes, she did grow, but took way too damn long for somebody who was immortal. She's been able to grow from creation. So come on, get with it.
Well, that's it. I mean, you look at Lucifer, and his arc only took 6 seasons for him to really kind of figure things out. And it took her so much longer. She's been around forever, and she still hasn't figured out what her place was. It really hit a nerve on for me. Same with you, Gail, that they were developing a character like that.
I agree also on Trixie because, and fortunately she doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, but you know, real children aren't that interesting. Having had 3 of them, they have their moments, but they never are the precocious, brilliant child who says the thing out loud that none of the adults have thought of, except on TV. And I keep wondering, 2 things. I wonder, have scriptwriters ever had children? And have
Not that they've acknowledged.
Have scriptwriters ever had a functional romantic relationship? I think the answer to both of those is no, because very, very few of them seem to be able to write these things. And so my big thing that drove me nuts was the whole season where Chloe decides that after Lucifer has told her the truth from day one that he is the devil, oh my God, he's the devil, I've got to kill him and betray him and all this.
Yeah. With the priest.
Yeah.
Oh,
Totally agree.
That was really annoying. That was my second one after Trixie.
Yeah, Chloe was such a great character, and then all of a sudden she's stupid. Yeah. And this is where I go back to have they ever had a relationship, the scriptwriters? Because it was really just a plot device to break them up instead, because, oh my God, moonlighting, we can't let them get together. Instead of saying, you know, these people are going to have a difficult time if we let them get together. Let's let them get together and figure out where it blows up then.
Right. Let the kids play with matches. Yeah.
What?
Let the kids play with the matches. It'll be more entertaining.
Yeah. Instead of the whole, let's keep them, will they, won't they, will they, won't. That's been done so many times. Let's get them together and watch the fun as they actually try to navigate a relationship, which is not exactly the easiest thing in the world. There's a lot of potential for drama there. So just my 2 cents. What would you have liked to have seen more of in the show that we didn't get or have seen in greater detail? And Susan?
I really wanted more Maze and her family. I don't think we got to see so much of the in terms of the Celestials. We got to see all the angels and what their family was like, but we really got very little about Maze's family. Once one or two little bits came up eventually, but I wanted more. There's a whole army of demons down in hell, and we got to see hardly any. And she was by far the most dynamic and unforgiving and just open about everything. It was very refreshing. And I wanted more characters like that, and to see why they were like that and what they were doing down in hell, and why couldn't they come up if you know, the Celestials can come down or the angels can come down, why couldn't they come up more? Certainly Lucifer wasn't stopping anybody. So I'd really like to have seen a lot more of her family, or even if it's not, you know, physical family, but just her circle. I think that would have lent a whole new dynamic that they didn't really take the show into. And that was disappointing to me, because I really thought that there was a whole hidden aspect there that we never really got to spend a lot of time down in hell. We never got to see any of the demons in hell. I mean, they would look really cool. I have to say, their vision of hell was by far one of the more unique looks just depicted. But you didn't see any even demons down there. You hardly saw anything. And I really want to know more about that region and who inhabited, and why weren't the demons coming up and having a blast too, because that would have been fun.
Okay. Bishop?
Yeah, I'm actually going to kind of follow on Susan's. I would have liked to have seen more with hell, because I agree. I think that was a really interesting take, the whole idea of you being a prisoner of your own guilt. I also really would have liked to have seen something with Lilith. They like brushed on that whole mythology of Lilith, and I would have liked to have seen it explained more, because they kind of left it unexplained. Because, you know, in theology, of course, Lilith came before Eve, and it was because she wouldn't submit to Adam that she, you know, was sent out of the garden and God got mad at her. I would have liked to have seen them delve a little bit more into that, and how that could have played with Mazikeen and Lucifer and everybody else, or if she died, how did she die? How did they're obviously we're playing on the whole thing that her being the mother of all the demons, and she had her own language they spoke. But I thought that was a vein that they really could have tapped into to really bring out some new complications and things, and and I think it would have been interesting for the character who played Mazikeen, because they revealed that she looks just like her mom, to let her play both roles and to see how she plays it. I think that was I think that was just a chance that they could have done something, and they just never did anything more than just kind of whisper about it.
Okay, Hildy.
So I'm gonna follow along in a theme. One of the things I liked I've been reading the compendiums of Lucifer collections. One of the things I like about it is how hell and heaven, the Silver City and hell, they're so fully built out, and they have their own nobility there. There are beings that are nobility in hell, and there's a whole societal striation. And in the Silver City, how the angels interact with each other and how they relate, and and I think, of course, that's probably would have been too big for the series to do, but it's fascinating stuff. Like, that's really interesting to me, because the worlds of hell and heaven, the Silver City, really aren't necessarily out of Christian mythology or any religious mythology per se, the way they were created by Gaiman and all. They're their own worlds. They may as well be other planets, or other dimensions, which seems to be more of what he's going for. And they're really interesting. And I would have loved to have seen more of that. We got little hints, but I guess they couldn't do a whole big thing.
That's the spinoff.
Yeah. Carole?
I'm a woman of humble tastes. I just wanted more. I just wanted to see them keep going. I wanted to see, I love them all. I love the Doctor, and I love Ella, and I love, all of them. I just wanted to see them keep going, just to see. I don't have any grand ideas here or anything, but I just enjoyed all of the little things between all of them. And you just don't get that in a lot of shows. First of all, you don't get such a strong ensemble cast. And then even when you do, they don't necessarily have all this richness, so instead of eating broth, we're eating nice, rich custard, and I just wanted more of that custard. That's it.
I would have liked to have seen more about Ella. I thought she had she had to have an interesting backstory beyond what we saw. And I would have loved to have seen her get some more screen time, because she just was such a fantastic character and such a good foil. And I liked Dr. Linda. She was complex. She was frustrating sometimes, but a lot of character growth there, and maybe looking a little more into who she was before Lucifer showed up on her couch. And
how did he find her? Like, how did he even choose her?
That's a good point. They don't ever say, do they?
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen more about that.
Yeah.
And of course, there are a lot of things you only get so many episodes and so much script time, and you can only go on so many tangents, but there is that idea.
I've got to say that I was really thinking about Ella, because I absolutely adore her. And she's always these colorful things that come up about, like, oh my gosh, she knows about that. Oh my gosh, she knows about so many things, and has all these strange references. And she's just so funny. And oh yeah, Ella is definitely something we could have had more of, but she's also part of the whole custard thing.
Yes. So where would you, assuming that the final season didn't happen, where would you have gone if Lucifer had gotten, didn't have to wind up? Where would you have liked to have seen story arcs or investigations go if you'd have had unlimited episodes or seasons? Carole?
Would have been interesting to see everything we saw on the procedural side, of course, was just very local. And it would have been interesting to see them have to start dealing with maybe a national, like, the FBI or, the X-Files or something like, and to see how would they have dealt with this much larger, intrusive government agency stomping all over their little quirky ways of investigating. And, what do you mean? You look at him and say, what do you most desire? And, I think having them play on a larger scale, on a larger stage, could have been interesting.
Yeah, I'm sorry you said that, and I just imagined 2 FBI agents walking in with rock star aliases and going, there's something about this that isn't right. Hildy?
I think I would have liked to have seen more of Lucifer and Chloe together. Going back to what you said earlier, Gail, I wish they had not played the will they or won't they game so long. But since they did, I would have liked to have seen that relationship and more of the challenges that they face. We got a little taste of the challenges from Linda and Amenadiel and their little guy and, all of that. But we're talking about a human living with the devil. Like, how would that have gone? What, does she go hang out with him in hell? Does she give him tips on making the hell loops tighter or work better? Like, there was a lot. What about Trixie finding out this is the literal devil? Let's see that. How do you tell your child that? Do they wrap their head around it? Or do they think you're insane? There's a lot of things we could have seen with them as together and as a weird pseudo family that I would have liked to have seen play out.
Yeah, Trixie taking Lucifer to take your parent to school day.
Yeah.
What job does your father have? Well, he either runs Lux or hell.
Right.
There's just so much there.
Yeah.
How about you, Bishop?
Well, I want that episode now.
I know.
And I also want Special Agents Plant and Palmer to show up. And that would have been great. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more delving into the mythology of it too. They kind of start to brush on the whole thing with the Nephilim, but it's really left out because depending upon what path you go down, Nephilim are absolutely terrifying in the Bible. So bad that that's one of the stories behind why God caused the flood, was to kill them all off. So I think that would have been something. There's so much lore and just raw meat behind that mythos, because you've got Judaism and Christianity and even going all the way back, with Semitism and it's, you could take it back to even the stories of Gilgamesh, and there's just so much out there that I think they could have brought on. And it's the things they did hit on, it seemed to me, were the low-hanging fruit, the Adam and Eve and Cain and all that stuff. I did really like the angels. I thought some of them were really well played. But it's just, there was just so much left on the table and the stuff they picked up. I think that they could, I would have liked to have seen them do more and embrace it more and bring it out to some kind of level, of how it all interacts with Earth. Is it some kind of a center point, that if hell's below and heaven's above, does that make Earth like, some kind of junction point? What the flow is, or maybe even if there is something like reincarnation, or is it just an ever increasing population in hell and heaven that is just refilling up? Just where do souls come from? What happens with them? It's I would have liked to have seen them start delving into that aspect. And you would have had characters like Ella would have been, as an example, who I absolutely adored Ella too. I mean, who can't adore her? But I would have loved to see her reaction to some of these things and some of these revelations, no pun intended, about the truth about some things, and seeing her come to terms with those and understanding, okay, well, you know, as somebody who was a strong believer, having her, you know, well, this is what I believed, and yes, it's right, but it's not exactly right. The camera's just a little out of focus, you know, and how does she react to the clearer picture? I would have liked to have seen that.
Mm-hmm. Susan?
Well, you guys stole all the best ideas. And a little bit of all of them is in my heart as well. Trying to think of something that would be new. I'd like to kind of see where, you know, the new offspring, like Linda's and Amenadiel's child, what direction were they going to take with that? Once they got into school, what were they going to do? You know, if it started manifesting any powers, there's a whole sideshow right there that I don't think, you know, I love the whole bit where she's like trying to, you know, bubble wrap the entire house. That was like such a great concept as a parent. The terrors you're going to go through, the things that are going through your mind when you're trying to, you know, baby proof a house. And how do you baby proof something for an angel that you have absolutely no concept of? There were so many little things that, yeah, that they could have played with, and we really didn't get much there. So having the show go longer would have given us the opportunity to explore some of those things. But, you know, going back, I would have loved to see more relationship, solid relationship, because I think that definitely with the on and off again was very frustrating for 2 or 3 seasons and then you finally get it and like, oh, now we're done. I also would have loved to have seen just less caricatures of the angels and the other celestials. I think sometimes they brought them in and kind of made them kind of too funny without dealing with a lot, probably because they didn't want to deal with a lot of the baggage that some of these, you know, theologies come with. But I think that would have been a really important thing to have started bringing up, since the show is about that kind of aspect. Even though you're doing a wink wink nudge nudge about it, I still think if you're going to play in that sandbox, you've got to address and rightfully address some of these particular theologies. And I think they really could have played with that for a long time. And yeah, probably stepped on a lot of people's toes, but that's the whole point of this, and to understand why we think of them the way we do. So I really would have liked to have seen them really dive into that particular area, which they kind of just brush very quickly and, you know, give it a little, you know, ha ha, and then we were done, and they would just come in for comedy relief and then they would be gone or something, or they would come in to make one particular bizarre statement and then they were gone. So there's lots of little things like that I, you know, like you said, you hit on all of them. I would have loved to have seen more of Ella. I would have loved to have seen everything. But maybe we'll get there. Maybe there'll be spin-offs, and that's all we can really hope for at this point, unless another miracle happens, and we all know that's possible in this world. So I'm ready for it either way.
Well, we'll always have fanfic that fills in all the gaps. I would have loved to have seen, well, first of all, the angel baby made me think of Jack in The Incredibles. Yes. And he had superhero parents and they weren't sure what to do with him. But, you know, there's so much opportunity there. But I would have loved to have explored more about that intersection of faith and certainty. Okay, faith is great when you don't have any of the answers, but when you've seen the devil, you've met angels, you've met God or Eve, now that you have that certainty, what becomes of your faith? Because certainty doesn't fill the same role in your psychology as faith does. There's a little difference there. And I'm also always sort of surprised that, and again, the show wasn't meant to be this serious, so it didn't go there, but you just think that when you've got God, Lucifer, all these folks walking around, they'd make a few visits to your local televangelist or crooked preacher and go, you know, you not only got it wrong, you twisted this a long time ago to line your own pockets, get your own power, etc. And I'm just telling you, you got the story totally wrong. I would have loved to have seen that kind of thing where, again, faith and certainty, but hey, you know, you took this off in a wrong direction for your own gain, and let's put it back. That would have been fun to see, although, you know, I'm sure there would have been flame wars. But I always think that when you've got characters like that walking around on the earth, and they never stop in to fix the record. I wouldn't like to be misquoted like that. So that's my personal take on it. Well, folks, we have run through our time as usual so quickly. Fast. You've all been absolutely wonderful. So there will be more Lucifer panels after the holidays. But let's go around and let everybody tell everybody where people can find you online. If you have a new, recent, or upcoming book, please tell us what it is and where to find it. And let's start with Susan.
You can find us at clayandsusangriffith.com. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at Clay and Susan, or you can find us individually also on Twitter and Facebook as well. Still don't have anything up and coming in terms of actually published, but things are up and coming, and hopefully we'll have something out soon. So we're really excited about all the new prospects. We're going to have a slew of them now that we've been working for so long. So awesome. We're looking forward to it.
Awesome. Bishop?
You can find me on my website is aquietpint.com. You can find me on Twitter and Facebook at Bishop O Connell. Anywhere books are sold. And Falstaff is going to be publishing Two Gun Witch. I don't have a firm release date yet, but once I get one, it will be broadcast wide and across the known universe. So stay tuned.
Fantastic. Hildy?
Ironically enough, the story I have out right now is in an anthology called Devilish and Divine from E-Spec Books. So that's the latest that's currently out. I have a few other things coming out soon in anthologies. I'll announce those as soon as they're available. You can find me on Twitter at Hildy9595 and at various conventions along the East Coast. When we're able to start going again, I actually am going to venture to my first convention next month for Cap Plays.
Nice.
So we'll see how that goes.
Nice. Carole?
I'm on Facebook here as Carole Stokes, Carole M. Stokes, and Twitter as Firesign10. All of my fiction, no, I'm sorry. Twitter is true_Firesign10. All of my fiction is on AO3 under Firesign10. And I'm also here on Continual a lot.
I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. All the social media is a variation of that. I also run the Supernatural TFWNC group here on Facebook, but mostly you can find me here on Continual. As Morgan, I've got a recent book out in the Treasure Trail series, Blink, and upcoming at the end of the month is Legacy, which is the next book in the Deadly Curiosity series, so lots going on. Well, folks, thank you so much for being the wonderful panelists you are. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There'll be more fandom coming up here on Continual, so we'll see you online.